Hello and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. I'm Katie Halper, so excited to be here and to be joined by none other than Leslie Lee the third.
Katie Halper, so excited to be here.
Hey, how's it going?
Sorry.
None other than
Leslie. A little echo
Lee the
issue.
third.
1 second, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Too many windows open. God, sometimes when you have the windows open. Hi, Kelly.
Hey.
Hey. Yeah, you're live. We are live. You're live with. You're like, bye-bye. Okay. So it's nice it's nice when I have YouTube open another window because I see how unclear I am, which I don't know why that is. We got to figure that out. I feel like this is a almost slapstick scene where it gets increasingly louder, like the special effects, like jangling keys, dog chewing something. What would come next? Like a cracking of an egg. All right. Well, glad to see you guys. Hi, David Melford. Hi, everyone else. Echo no more. Thumbs up, like. Yes, please like. Please like and share this stream. Please subscribe if you don't already subscribe. And we have a great show for you guys tonight. We have with us, joining us. Oh, wow. This is great. I gotta highlight this comment. Frank Capria says, when I had COVID, watching the whole Katie Halper show was the only good thing about having COVID. Wow. Thank you. That is so nice. So we have a great show for you guys today. And we are going to be talking to John Kiriakou, who is a former CIA analyst. And, you know, the good news, guys, is that when something bad happens, you want people to be held accountable, right? Held responsible. And what's great is that we all know and hate and love, hopefully hate. We all know and hate the CIA torture program, right? And the good thing is that someone went to jail over that. The bad thing is that the person who went to jail over that is the person who blew the whistle on that, which is a pretty Orwellian thing to think about. And that's who our guest is tonight. And he's someone who was a CIA analyst. He's a whistleblower. He's the author of several books. And he is probably like one of the best sources on discussing 9/11, pulling out of Afghanistan, things like that. But sadly, he's not ever sought out by the mainstream media. So you wouldn't see him on MSNBC, on CNN. In fact, he's going to share some stories about how he's treated by those networks, which, interestingly enough, is not in a particularly appropriate professional way. But before we get to that, oh, and hi, thanks from London and Venezuela. Greetings from London. Do you hear some background noise, Leslie? Is that your right mic? Because I hear some, or is that someone else? I hear like an Argentine. It was almost like a tango.
Hold on 1 second. Let me see.
Sure. All right. Someone asked me why I drag them through my tech problems. I don't know. Why? Because I like doing that. It's not like we don't do a tech run before. Things just happen. Tell Abby Martin I'm live. Why? Why do I? Okay, it's the CIA tapping the stream. It could be that. Yeah. The Katie Halper Show is a proven cure. It's true. Hi from Costa Rica. Wow, we got a really international audience. And by the way, yeah, why not? Why should I not walk you through my tech problems, or drag as the verb is? Thank you, Robert. You know, some people are visionaries. And when I say some people, that includes Robert Nichols, perhaps most of all. Out in left field, I subscribed to Katie 4 years ago on YouTube. I was so happy when she finally got on YouTube. Hi, Katie. Chat. Where's this? A chat from Philadelphia. Hi, Katie, Leslie, and chat from Philadelphia. Hello, Philadelphia. Good evening, Philadelphia. Carne Verde points out Kiriakou's story is not complimentary toward many Defense Department advertisers and most media outlets. It's true. So it's a good sign that he's treated like crap by them. Someone is saying hi from Guantanamo Bay. I'm glad the conditions have improved so much that you can watch the Katie Halper show and have good enough internet to sign in and say hi. Hey, Katie Halper, this show distresses me. I think you mean like, yes, that's how you spell it, right? Like de-stresses me, not distresses me. Okay, and then Sparky wants me to ask about Five Eyes controlling the MSM narrative. I feel like that's a reference I don't get, but you may get. Do you know what that means, Leslie? Five Eyes? If not,
No, off the top of my head, no.
Okay, not top of your head. Okay, you're better on covert conspiracy things than I am. Maybe it's not even a conspiracy theory. Anyway, we'll see. Okay, cool new logo, Leslie. Oh yeah, I need my logo up there. Maybe Nick can throw that up. The little Katie Halper show thing that goes in the corner. Oh, hello from Canada. When does the party start? The party already started. Oh, Five Eyes are the governments of US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Ah, interesting. All English speaking. All right. Five Eyes. Shouldn't that be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 eyes? Just saying. All right. Well, we'll get more into the Five Eyes shortly. Oh, there's a really funny clip. We'll watch that later about did you see that clip going around? Anyone see that clip going around in the chat from the show I think called Utopia with Australia choosing to like declare war on China? Anyway, I'll find out. But before we bring John in, Leslie, how was your week and any updates that you like to share, either from your personal life or political life?
Well, this weekend, as everybody knows, was the 20th anniversary of September 11th, and I got to watch former President Trump celebrate this and give his tribute to this by calling a freak show boxing fight. President Donald Trump, yes, that Donald Trump, former president, was actually commentating. He spent the day in New York, but then he flew down to Florida to do some commentary on this boxing show headlined by the 58-year-old Evander Holyfield being TKO'd by Vitor Belfort in a really a match that probably should not have legally be allowed to take place, because Evander Holyfield, even though he's in amazing shape, he's 60 years old. He's an old man. He's just an old man. And to see Donald Trump there commenting on it, and his commentary was so bizarre because even though he goes to all these boxing events, he doesn't know anything about it. You know that old trope about like how in like a sitcom, like the wife will watch football and she'll just start cheering for the team with the most attractive uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
That's how Trump approaches like boxing. Even though he's been going for 20 years, he still keeps talking about, like he kept talking about during the event, like, oh, that guy, he looks so beautiful. He's in such great shape. Like he must be winning, right? He literally asked the MMA guys, like, how come like sometimes the most attractive fighter doesn't win? Like he did not understand that the hottest guy isn't always going to win the fight. He didn't understand.
Well, that's because he is a winner. He won the presidency. So the lesson he learned is the hot guy wins.
Yes. And that's why he was so sad about losing to Biden, because
Exactly.
I think he has an argument. That, hey, maybe he's a little bit hotter than Biden.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I can't even. That's a terrible would you rather. Yeah, yes. I know. That's like that or cutting off my leg. I'm not sure which of those three scenarios.
Yeah, but it was a fun show, but very strange, like culturally, because Triller Fights is like this. It's like some kind of sort of like scam that all these celebrities are invested in. I'm sure there's Saudi money involved, but like they're appealing to the MAGA crowd with Trump. But they're also like their whole promotion is like very like youth leaning and like hip hop oriented. So it's like also trying to advertise to like young Black kid and Hispanic kids, while also like having like that old like white people who like Donald Trump wanted to fight and see. It was very, very, very strange like mashup of these cultures that you could watch for $50. and I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate. It was America. It was
Right.
America. A woman interrupted the 10 bell salute for September 11th victims and started screaming. And most people assumed she was screaming at Donald Trump because the camera was on Trump and he was trying to look his most somberest with there. And Donald Jr. was there too. But the woman was actually screaming because she didn't want to wear a mask.
What?
She was screaming about the mask. I don't even know if she had to wear a mask because most people weren't wearing masks. I think she was just screaming about the mask restrictions existing. That's how mad
About
she
the
was.
Holocaust.
Yeah, she was literally
Slavery and the Holocaust combined is the mask mandate.
Yeah, so it was like she was at this event with Donald Trump during a 9/11 tribute, very somber. And she was still so mad about the fact that in some places there's a mask mandate that she felt the need to interrupt it in front of the person who I'm sure she voted for twice. Like it looked like a good moment for him. Like that he got to be there and be very somber. And then this woman just starts screaming bloody murder about something or another while Trump's there. Very embarrassing night, at least at the start, because he was really not into the fights. He was like exhausted at like 6 p.m.
Trump was? Or the
Trump was.
yeah.
Trump was. He did not want to be there until he was joined by like some actual fighters, a fighter named Jorge Masvidal and then Junior Dos Santos. They're both like MAGA, like MMA fighters. He talked about like, oh yeah, these guys helped me win Miami by 30 points. First time Republicans ever done that. And he got when they replaced like the MMA commentators who are just these like nerds with like the hot MMA fighters, Trump started getting really into it and excited about it.
What do you think it is? He just like gets
he likes
what do you think it is?
He likes being around hot guys. I don't know what else to say. He likes being around hot, fit guys. He's very much like Vince McMahon in a sense. Vince McMahon also thought that the hottest guy should always buffest guy should win every fight. That's why he did pro wrestling, to make that a true story. But Trump wants it in MMA and boxing, and he's confused by why that doesn't happen.
So Trump knows wrestling but not boxing, is that correct?
Well,
or does he not know wrestling either?
He's very good at wrestling. I think, how do I say this about Trump? He is a natural heel, and can you remind people
like me what heel is?
So a heel is a bad guy in wrestling, and a face is a good guy. And so Trump is just kind of a natural heel. Like he knows how, and a heel's point is to get people mad at them, right? So the madder you get at a heel, you're just responding to the more you boo the heel, the better he's doing at his job and the happier he is.
Oh, like trolls. They're like
trolls. Well, yeah, kind of, but that's the key thing to understanding. Like that's what kayfabe's all about. Like you think that when you go
remind people what kayfabe is.
Kayfabe just means fake. It's kind of the idea that wrestling is taking place and the matches are predetermined, right?
Okay.
So when you go down there and boo, Roddy Piper and yell at him, you're not hurting his feelings. That's what he wants you to do. That's his job. If you stop going to do that, then Roddy Piper loses his job. And so that helps with understand politics, because lots of things Trump did piss people off, but it's like he wanted people to be pissed off about that, or that's all. It's all part of the show. I would say.
Trump versus Biden celebrity presidential death match. That would be good. I just want, before we bring on the guests, I just want to show this is when I think of Trump and wrestling. This is what I think of. You guys remember this? Hold on. Remember this tweet?
Oh yeah. He does know pro wrestling. He did do a very sloppy lariat move. It's not a very good move.
What's that move?
That's called a lariat, but he doesn't do it well. You're supposed to do more force so that when you hit the person with your arm, they're going down. Like he kind of falls on top of the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of just falls on top of him. So it's not a very good Larry. In fact, one of the earliest episodes of Struggle Session, which you can find at patreon.com/struggle session, we invited an actual real life championship pro wrestler, Nicole Matthews, to evaluate Trump's wrestling ability. And frankly, she was not impressed.
Oh, okay. So that wasn't good wrestling that he did there.
Yeah, see, we tried to take Trump down very early on. People should have listened to us. We tried to tell people that he was bad at pro wrestling. And nobody listened to us. We tried to stop him. He never would have been elected.
And as goes pro wrestling goes being president over the United States. So that should have been a warning. You tried. We all did our best to take him down. Speaking of Patreon, I want to thank everyone who supports this show on Patreon. I also want to encourage people to support the show on Patreon, patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. And if you do that, you get your name read and you even get a little poem written about you. So I'm going to thank some recent Patreon donors to this show. And if I've skipped you or missed you, just let me know in the chats and I will read your names. And also remember, you have this entire show to become Patreon supporters in a way that will get you featured on the show. So here is who I'm thanking right now. Ready? Susan Parenti. You come from rich parentage. And I say that because you share the last name with Christian Parenti and Michael Parenti.
Great historian.
Great, yes. And great intellectuals, great speakers also. Who else do we got? We also have a new Patreon supporter, Fender Gibson. That is a fender bender of a donation that we got from him. Just a fender bender of a donation. So thank you so much for that. Who writes the poems? I write the poems. I know you can't tell because they seem so professional and baroque.
Are you being ghostwritten by Amanda Gorman? Perhaps, Kanye West even?
I both of them actually in real time at the same time. But so that's the show so far. What else do we want to talk about? I think should we just get into that into the interview because our guest is so good. I really want to get as much time from him as possible. What say ye?
Yes, we get
All right. So our guest tonight is John Kiriakou, a former CIA analyst and former case officer and former counterterrorism consultant for MSNBC News and lifelong whistleblower, exposing after he left the CIA, the U.S.'s illegal and immoral torture policy practiced by the U.S. government during the Iraq War. 1 second. There's more. Do not you worry. He is a former senior investigator for the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and former counterterrorism consultant for ABC News. He was responsible for the capture in Pakistan in 2002 of Abu Zubaydah, I can't say this right, Abu Zubaydah, believed to be the third-ranking official in Al-Qaeda. In 2007, Kiriakou blew the whistle on the CIA's torture program, saying that the CIA tortured prisoners, that torture was official U.S. government policy, and that the policy had been approved by then-President George W. Bush. He became the sixth whistleblower indicted by the Obama administration under the Espionage Act, a law designed to punish spies. He served 23 months in prison as a result of the revelation. Kiriakou won the Penn Center USA's prestigious First Amendment Award in 2015, the first Blueprint International Whistleblowing Prize for Bravery and Integrity in the Public Interest in 2016, and the Sam Adams Award for Integrity and Intelligence, also in 2016. Kiriakou is the author of The Reluctant Spy, My Secret Life in the CIA's War on Terror, Doing Time Like a Spy, How the CIA Taught Me to Survive and Thrive in Prison, The Convenient Terrorist, and Abu Zubaydah and the Weird Wonderland of America's Secret Wars. So, without any further ado, let us bring onto the stream John Kiriakou. Hello.
Hey, thanks for having me, Katie.
Of course. Thank you so much for joining.
Well, it's my pleasure. And thanks to everybody. I can't believe how many people are already on and commenting. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, people are really excited that you're here. And you should be on every network, but surprisingly are not. And I just coincidentally, before I booked you, after I booked you, I saw that you were on with Robert Scheer. And it was a great interview. And one of the things that he was pointing out was why, this is a time when people like you should be sought after. There are not that many people like you, though, but you should be sought after. You're someone with inside knowledge who's actually willing to talk about these things in ways that are honest. But that's also exactly why you're not asked to talk.
I don't want to sound cynical, but all these networks have their retired 4-star generals that they need to put on the air, and it's funny. After I blew the whistle, I was frozen out of the big news networks. And then a couple of times I had invitations from CNN, once from MSNBC, the Ari Melber show. And then when Trump got elected, I was getting more requests from Fox than I could handle. And it was because they wanted me to jump up and down and yell about the Obama administration waging a war on whistleblowers. So, that was one of those points where the enemy of my enemy was my friend. But as soon as Donald Trump left, then that was the end of it with Fox, too.
Right. So now, lucky for us, lucky for the Katie Halper show, we have a near monopoly. We share you with Bob Scheer. Yeah.
Well, right. There's one notable one. Jared Leto, the Joker himself, reached out to you and did an interview. That's of all the people, one of the most twisted minds in Hollywood, but not MSNBC.
Crazy. I was Jared Leto's high school history teacher. At a small school in Washington, and I actually wrote him a letter of recommendation to go to film school.
Wow!
Yeah, and then he went on to win an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Terrific guy.
And he interviewed you?
He interviewed me on his show. He has a web show that did quite well. And then when I won the Penn Award, I asked him if he would introduce me. So he was generous enough to do that.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it was fun.
Awesome. Your So-Called Life.
Yes. Remember that?
Life. Yeah.
That was a show that nobody watched, that the critics absolutely loved, and it put him on a path to stardom.
Yeah, I remember that. Whatever happens, happens. That's something he said, which sounds like Buddhist in the context of what we're talking about. But can you tell people about how you wound up in prison? Because there's like so many twists and turns, but I just think it's important to remember that you are the one person in prison over the CIA torture program. So
yeah, the only one. I led a raid in Pakistan on the night of March 22nd, 2002. That resulted
in. And at this point, you were what?
Yeah, I was the chief of CIA counterterrorism operations in Pakistan. Okay. I had gotten to Pakistan in January of 2002. So we had just finished bombing Tora Bora, and my big claim to fame there, I guess I can say it now because almost 20 years have passed, was we had these CIA officers all the way up and down the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And I said that was really, really inefficient, that we should pull everybody off the border, bring them into the cities, let the terrorists come into the cities, and then we know they're going to make a mistake because they're always going to make a mistake. Then we hit the safe house and we grab everybody at once. And that actually worked. And so we caught many dozens, I'm not allowed to say the number, of alleged al-Qaeda terrorists that night, including Abu Zubaydah, who we believed at the time was the number 3 in al-Qaeda. He was not the number 3. He was not even a member of al-Qaeda. He was a bad guy. He had founded al-Qaeda's 2 training centers training camps in southern Afghanistan. He had founded what they called the House of Martyrs in Peshawar, Pakistan. It was the safe house that al-Qaeda used there to bring people into and out of Afghanistan. And he was kind of a logistics guy for al-Qaeda. If you needed a passport, you needed a ticket, you wanted to go fight, or you were tired of the fight and you wanted to go home, Abu Zubaydah was your guy. That's who you went to. So we caught him. And my orders that night were to sit with him in the hospital. A Pakistani policeman had shot him 3 times with an AK-47 in the groin, the stomach, and the thigh. And so my orders were not to leave his bedside. So I tore up a sheet, I tied him to the bed, and I sat there. And we talked a lot. And I said to him at one point, listen, I'm going to give you some advice. I am the nicest guy that you're going to meet in this experience. I said, my colleagues, they're not nice like I am. So if there's one thing that you have to do, it's that you have to cooperate. And he said, you seem like a nice man, but you're the enemy, and I'll never cooperate. Well, finally, the CIA sent in an unmarked private jet to pick him up. 3 FBI agents and I carried him out on a gurney to the plane. We maneuvered him onto the plane. We put him on the luggage rack at the back, tied him down, and he squeezed my hand. And I said, remember, you have to cooperate. But he was very upset. He cried a lot. He said he would never know the touch of a woman. He would never know the joy of fatherhood. And I said, listen, you're not the victim here. There were 50,000 people in those towers. What did you think we were going to do? Did you think we wouldn't try to find you or to find bin Laden? And he said, I never wanted to attack the United States on September 11th. All I ever wanted to do was to kill Jews, he said. He wanted to attack Israel. Nice guy, right?
Phew, yeah.
So I said, your life is over. What's left of it can be easy or it can be terrible. The choice is yours. Now, I said that, but I really didn't know what the CIA had in store for him. I didn't know that while this was all taking place, at headquarters, they were coming up with this torture program. So I got back to CIA headquarters in May of 2002, and I was asked if I wanted to be, the words were, trained in the use of enhanced interrogation techniques. I had never heard the term before. So I asked what it meant, and this senior officer, after excitedly saying, we're going to start getting rough with these guys, he told me what they meant. And I said, ooh, I don't know, man. I said, that sounds like a torture program. No, he said, it's not a torture program. It was approved by the Justice Department and the White House. I said, yeah, I don't think I'm interested. I actually consulted a senior officer, and he's like, buddy, he said, run screaming from the room. This is a terrible mistake. So I went back down and I said, I am not interested in this. I think it's immoral, it's unethical, and it's certainly illegal. I actually got passed over for promotion because I turned it down. So I went about my business. I got promoted because of Abu Zubaydah. I became the executive assistant to the CIA's deputy director for operations. And so I was able to follow the whole torture program as it was playing out. But what we were reading at headquarters was actually a lie. What was really happening was that Ali Soufan, an FBI agent with whom I had worked in Pakistan, and other FBI interrogators had actually gotten Abu Zubaydah to start talking. And they did that the way they've been doing that since the Nuremberg trials in 1945, by establishing a rapport, by being respectful, by offering him, an orange or a cigarette or, a piece of paper and a pencil so he could write to his mother, which he was really, really worried about. He was very worried that his mother would, think the worst. And
make sure she knows that I just wanted to kill Jews.
Yeah, yes. And she was so proud of him. After we captured him, she immediately ran to the media and she said that she wished that all of her sons, and she had like 9 sons, she wished that all of her sons could have made jihad against the Americans like Abu Zubaydah did. Wow. It's like, you might want to tell your mom to stop talking.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
for the sake of his siblings, that's just so much pressure.
Yeah. Well, I was so appalled by this torture program. I left the agency and I kept waiting for somebody to go public. It was just so egregious. I thought, surely somebody is going to go public and say something. And nobody did. Well, I let time pass. And then finally, in December of 2007, I said something in an interview to Brian Ross at ABC News. As you might imagine, the very next day, the CIA filed what's called a crimes report against me with the FBI, saying that I had revealed classified information. And this is where it gets weird. The FBI investigated me from December of 2007 to December of 2008. And then they closed the case and they sent my attorneys a declination letter, meaning they were declining to prosecute me. So My then wife and I were so happy that we actually went out to dinner and celebrated that night, that this nightmare was over. But 3 weeks later, when Barack Obama was inaugurated and John Brennan became the Deputy National Security Advisor for Counterterrorism, my troubles began anew. John and I were not friendly. I had worked directly for him. And then when I went up to the 7th floor as the executive assistant, John was the executive director of the CIA, the number 3 ranking officer in the CIA. And he was one of the fathers of the torture program. And so he asked the Justice Department to secretly reopen the case against me. I had no idea that for the next 3 years, my phones were tapped, my emails were intercepted, and teams of FBI agents would periodically surveil me. And then in January of 2012, I was arrested and charged with 5 felonies, including 3 counts of espionage. Now, mind you, espionage sometimes carries with it the death penalty. But I had the greatest lawyers in Washington. I hadn't committed espionage. Those charges were eventually dropped. But in the end, I had to take a deal to make the whole thing go away. They were threatening me with 45 years. They offered me 2. And I actually turned down the 2 because I said, I haven't done anything wrong. And my lawyers said, look, this study had come out from ProPublica in October of 2012. It said that the federal government wins 98.2% of its cases. So I had a 1.8% chance of winning. I said, if I lose, realistically, what am I looking at here? And they said, realistically, 12 to 18 years. Take the deal. And so I took the deal. You know, there's this joke that everybody in prison is innocent. I met a lot of people in prison who were actually innocent. But when they have essentially the rest of your life hanging over your head and they're offering you a fraction of that to plead guilty, people plead guilty. You got to make the thing go away. One of the things, this will be my last thought on this issue. One of the things that one of the lawyers told me, and this was the lawyer that I liked and trusted the most. I had 11 lawyers, if you can imagine. He said, this can be a blip in your life, or it can be the defining event of your life. Make it the blip. And so I took the deal.
Wow. So can you tell us more, before we move forward to what's happening today, about what you learned from, can you pronounce Abu Zubaydah? Abu Zubaydah. What you learned from him, how you learned what you learned from him, and what insight that gave you into what I guess was behind, for some people, the vitriol against the United States and Israel.
Yeah, good question. So Abu Zubaydah taught us a lot. There were 2 things that were the most critical that came from Abu Zubaydah. First of all, the guy had a mind for detail that I've rarely come across in my career. Abu Zubaydah gave us Al-Qaeda's wiring diagram, which we just never knew. We knew that Osama bin Laden was the number 1, that Ayman al-Zawahiri had been the number 2, now he's the number 1, and that Mohammed Atta was the head of what they called military affairs. And we killed him. Mohammed Atef, sorry. We killed him in October of 2001. We just didn't know anything else about Al-Qaeda. We didn't know how it was structured. We didn't know where it was. And so Abu Zubaydah said, and I'm going to use this as an example. He didn't say these specific words. What he said was is still classified, but to give you an idea, we would ask him, if I wanted to carry out an attack in, let's say, Dusseldorf, how would I do that? And he said, well, in Dusseldorf, there's this guy, Mohammed, and here's his phone number. And Mohammed knows this other guy, Abdullah, and Abdullah's really good with bombs. And Abdullah has this email. And Abdullah's cousin is a guy named Rashid, and Rashid has access to weapons. And this is the address where Rashid keeps the weapons. So we call the Germans and we'd say, hey, you have a problem in Dusseldorf, and here's the information we have. And then the Germans raid these addresses and they grab Mohammed, Abdullah, and Rashid, and, lives were saved. So that was the one thing that he was really great at. The other thing that he was really great at, and it was dramatic, was we had never heard of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. We just never heard the name before. We knew that there was this guy going by the nom de guerre Mukhtar. And we knew that Mukhtar had been the mastermind of what was supposed to be called the Treblinka operation. I'm sorry, the Bojinka operation. Forgive me. The Bojinka operation in 1996 was a plot to hijack something like a half a dozen 747s in Manila and then fly them into buildings up and down the west coast of the United States. Word of this plot leaked, and we were able to break it up along with the Filipinos. But all we knew is that it was a guy named Mukhtar. So when he mentioned Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, we didn't know who that was. And he laughed and he said, "You don't know Mukhtar?" And that was the first time that we were able to understand that Mukhtar was Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, which then gave us a target, right? We have these targeting analysts at the CIA whose job it is to pour through thousands, hundreds of thousands of pages of data to try to locate somebody. Most CIA analysts, their job is to think the big thoughts and write a paragraph and write a second paragraph of analysis and then send it to the White House and hope that, the deputy assistant to the president for whatever reads it and then you influence policy. This is a completely different job. There's a guy named Ahmed Shmahmed. I don't know where he is. We need to kill him. You have to find him. And then that's it. They send you, go to NSA, you go to FBI, you just use what's called all source intelligence to try to geolocate somebody so we can either grab them or kill them. And so they put the targeting analysts on Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and 2 months later he was in our custody. So that was the value of Abu Zubaydah. And I'll add one other thing about Abu Zubaydah, and I feel very strongly about this. Abu Zubaydah has never been charged with a crime. Never. Not in the United States, in any federal district, not in the military tribunal at Guantanamo. Whether we like this guy's politics or not is irrelevant. What is relevant is that he has constitutional protections. And so either we're a nation governed by the rule of law and by this living, breathing constitution that we're all so proud of, or we're not. And if you're not going to charge him with a crime, you have to let him go. Now, he's been in our custody for almost 20 years. It's going to be 20 years on March the 22nd. And he's never been charged with a crime. And that's after going through unspeakable torture, including where he was taken into surgery without his consent and had his eye removed. So we've really done a number on this guy. Oh, yeah.
For any reason?
He had hurt his eye fighting the Soviets. And so he had one brown eye and one eye that was really, really pale blue because he had taken some shrapnel. Yeah, he couldn't see from that eye, but, it never bothered him.
Yeah, you're allowed to. Oh, my God.
And so we drugged him one day, and when he woke up, he had no eye.
What was was that just a power move?
Yeah, it was just, I mean.
Like a sadistic move? Like a control.
It was
so disgusting. Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
That's why we gave him.
I know I sound so naive. We're talking about the CIA and also torture, but still oh my gosh.
That's why he refuses to wear a glass eye. When you see pictures of him now, it's always with an eye patch. Yeah. He refuses. They gave him a glass eye and he said, absolutely not.
Because he wants to be in people's faces. What happened?
What we did to him. Mm-hmm.
And so the other thing, and Robert Scheer pointed this out, his mind. I mean, how destroyed are these people's minds? You were talking about this in this interview. If it, just for Machiavellian reasons, wouldn't we want to not torture these people so that they would be useful resources for information?
Yes. Oh my God. One of the things that we learned very quickly is torture just simply doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't
Besides
work.
the moral, ethical stuff.
But so, yeah, forget the whole moral, ethical, legal question. It just simply doesn't work. A person who's being tortured will tell you anything that person thinks you want to hear, whether it's true or not, just to get you to stop torturing them. So they will give you this data dump of information that you're going to have to then assign an army of analysts to go through to figure out what's true and what's not true. Well, there might be something true in there. There's definitely stuff that's not true in there. And you've just wasted all these resources and 6 months. Now, there's this, what they call the ticking time bomb theory, right? There's a bomb that's getting ready to go off in some American city. We don't know where. We need the information, like on Fox's 24, and we got to torture the guy to get the information. That's not real life. That doesn't happen ever in real life. Let's say you torture the guy. He says the bomb is in Chicago, Los Angeles, Seattle, Houston, San Antonio, and Philadelphia. Okay, now what do? He just said there are bombs all over the country. Now you got to figure out what was true and what wasn't true. And by the time you figure it out, the bomb went off and killed everybody. And that's besides the moral, legal, and ethical issues.
And what kind of treatment did you witness any of this, or did you just know about this?
No, when I turned down the torture training, I was just cut off. Right, I got passed over for promotion. They gave me this nickname, the human rights guy, which was not a compliment.
Right,
and so what nobody expected was that 6 weeks later I was going to get promoted and go up to the 7th floor as the executive assistant. And in that position, I had access to literally everything that the CIA was doing around the world. And that was just at the time that they started torturing him. So I got to see it. And I mentioned a few minutes ago, and I didn't explain myself, that what we knew or thought we knew at the CIA was a lie. The truth is that Ali Soufan, the FBI agent, had established this rapport with Abu Zubaydah, and Abu Zubaydah opened up. And he was giving us that Dusseldorf-like information. The CIA was furious that the FBI had primacy over this case. Now, the FBI had primacy because 9/11 was still an open criminal investigation. But historically, whenever something is going on overseas, the CIA is in charge. Whenever something is going on domestically, the FBI is in charge. So here we were overseas at this secret location, and the FBI is in charge. And that enraged the CIA leadership. I can't explain enough how deeply the CIA and the FBI hated each other. We hated each other so much that we didn't speak to one another, and our computer systems weren't even compatible. And this is the operative point. Ali Soufan was getting all this intelligence from Abu Zubaydah. He was writing it all up and sending it to the FBI, right? The CIA had no idea that this stuff was being reported because the FBI wasn't sharing it. And so George Tenet, who was the CIA director at the time, went to President Bush and asked President Bush to withdraw the FBI from the secret site and let the CIA take over. Now, why Bush agreed to do that, he's never explained. But the FBI was pulled out, the CIA took over, and within 2 hours, they began torturing Abu Zubaydah. Well, what did he do? He completely went silent. He just clammed up and stopped telling his interrogators anything at all. So what these two CIA contractors did, Mitchell and Jessen, is they found Ali Soufan's FBI reports. They retyped them in the CIA database and said, oh my God, we waterboarded him one time and look what he gave us. All this intelligence. Somebody call the Germans. We got to save Dusseldorf, right? Mukhtar is Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Oh my God. And I said to a friend of mine, when the report came in, maybe I'm wrong. I've been on my high horse about this being, a terrible policy and it doesn't work. Maybe it does work. That doesn't make it moral or ethical, but I mean, they're telling us, look at what he gave us. He gave us the kitchen sink. Well, that was all a lie. He had already given it to Ali Soufan. We didn't know that was a lie until the CIA Inspector General's report was declassified in 2009, if you can imagine. And we gave Mitchell and Jessen $108 million of the taxpayers' money to come up with this torture program. That's a crime.
So just to clarify, the CIA got the program taken away from the FBI. They used the information that the FBI had already gotten from them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then pretended that it was the result of their interrogation to justify.
Because they knew nobody would check. The hatred was so deep between the CIA and the FBI, and the computer systems weren't compatible. They knew that nobody would check. And nobody did.
How many disasters happened because of that lack of, it sounds like a dating show or something, that lack of compatibility between the CIA and the FBI. But seriously,
well, the big one was 9/11, right? The CIA knew that there were these guys who meant to attack us inside the United States. They even had several of their names, their actual names.
Including Osama bin Laden, right?
Including Osama bin Laden, but I'm speaking specifically of the hijackers themselves.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We had some of their names. We knew that they were planning this massive major attack. And the FBI never told us that they were in the United States. And the FBI didn't say anything because the FBI believed that they were recruitable. And so they didn't want the CIA stepping on their promotions. If you recruit somebody, you're going to get promoted. You're going to get a medal. You'll get an award. The last thing you want is the CIA coming to grab your people. And so, both sides fell asleep at the switch.
It's so disgusting.
It's a little different now. Now there's an FBI agent who's the deputy director of the CIA's Counterterrorist Center. And there's a CIA officer who's the deputy director of the FBI's Counterterrorist Center. And people do rotations back and forth. Maybe you'll spend a year at the CIA and I'll spend a year at the FBI, and, we all go out for beers together on Friday nights. That's supposed to fix everything.
Also disgusting in a different way.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have that with the media.
Oh, my God. The situation with the media is worse than most Americans have any idea. There used to be this thing called Operation Mockingbird. And Mockingbird was where the CIA actively recruited reporters, especially American reporters, to plant stories. Now, we have laws against propagandizing the American people. You're not supposed to do that. And the CIA stopped doing it formally in 1975. Well, now they do it publicly. So they created this Office of Public Affairs. It has several different branches in it. One branch deals solely with Hollywood studios, so that any mention of the CIA is a positive one. That's how movies like Zero Dark 30 get made, or The Recruit. There are never Hollywood movies where the CIA guys are the bad guys. Never. And the other one deals with national security journalists. Now, there are national security journalists out there who are probably good journalists, but they don't have a budget like they used to have back in the day. And so they'll just take whatever the CIA gives them, they'll gist it and change some of the wording, and that's their article. So what you end up having is a situation where the CIA will tell journalists here in Washington what to write, and they write it. Now, there's one guy who's especially bad, Ken Delanian, from MSNBC, formerly of the Los Angeles Times. Jason Leopold, who's a journalist with BuzzFeed and a friend of mine, is the king of the Freedom of Information Act. He's done more Freedom of Information Act requests than any other person in America, to the point where a Defense Department official called him a FOIA terrorist because he's gotten so much information. He was the one that broke the information about the Hillary email server.
Right.
So he sent a Freedom of Information Act request to the CIA asking for copies of all emails between the CIA's Office of Public Affairs and national security journalists. And what that included was emails between Ken Dilanian and the Office of Public Affairs, where Ken Dilanian was writing pro-CIA articles for NBC and MSNBC, and he was sending them back to the CIA for approval before he was sending them to his own editor.
Well, it takes that one step. It's efficient.
But what the CIA does, see, Ken Dilanian is one of the guys that they like. What they don't like is somebody like Jason Leopold. And so they'll tell Jason Leopold, we want you to write this article this way, and if you don't, we will never speak to you again, and you will never have access to any CIA officer ever again. Well, Jason Leopold said that's fine. He'll develop his own sources, thank you very much. But the likes of Ken Dilanian just do as they're told.
Right. Yeah. Disgusting. Looks like such a salt of the earth guy. Never would have guessed it.
Yeah, he's a nice enough guy. I've met him a couple of times. He's always friendly.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't trust him as much as I could pick him up and throw him.
Right. And so how do you reveal? Can you just share the context in which you blow the whistle?
There's a right way to do it officially.
Oh, wait, really quickly before then.
Yeah.
How public are you about your beef with Brennan? I don't know the answer to what the beef is, but
I'm public with my beef.
I mean, we know that beef is there, but what about the cause?
You know, I don't know why John Brennan never liked me. When I worked for him, he was perfectly nice enough. I was not one of the in guys. We didn't hang out at his house to watch football like everybody else in my branch did. It was weird. I was the only guy in the office not invited to Brennan's house to watch football on Sundays. And I'm like, whatever. I'm married. I have 2 kids. I'll watch football with my kids. I didn't care. But later on.
Was it a Hellenophobic thing? Sorry, I just wanted to throw that.
I think I'm gonna go with that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You should.
He's prejudiced against Greek people.
There you go.
Let me tell you a little story about John Brennan. John worked for a woman when I first got hired. He worked for a woman who was a Syria expert. And she wrote this book called Syria, Fragile Mosaic of Power that we all had to read. Because it was like the definitive work on Hafez al-Assad, Bashar al-Assad's father. So John was a GS-15, which is the top of the GS scale, deputy director of the analytic group.
GS?
I'm sorry, the general services scale. It starts at 1, it goes to 15. So he's kind of a senior analyst, junior manager. And he goes to her one day, and she never really liked him. He goes to her one day and he said, listen, I've been a 15 for a long time. I think I'm ready to go to the Senior Intelligence Service, SIS. And that's where you belong to the whole community. You can go to the Pentagon, to the White House, to the State Department, and you're a big shot. So she said, not only will you never be a member of the Senior Intelligence Service, I don't even want you working for me anymore. You're fired. And at the CIA, it's unlike any other agency. At the CIA, if you're fired, that means you have 6 weeks to walk the halls and find another job. And if you can't find a job in those 6 weeks, then they escort you to your car and take your badge and tell you, don't ever come back again. Well, it was Christmas. And the normal cycle for jobs is summer. That's when everybody changes jobs, is in the summertime. Nobody's changing jobs at Christmas, so he couldn't find a job. So finally he goes to the PDB staff, the President's Daily Brief. Now, the President's Daily Brief is the most important document in government. Every morning, 6 days a week, The PDB staff briefs the president, the vice president, the secretaries of state and defense, the national security advisor, the CIA director, and all their deputies on whatever classified events happened overnight. Okay? It's like 12 pages long, and the president reads it line by line while the briefer is sitting there to answer questions. So he goes to the PDB staff and he says, I need a job. And they said, well, we have one opening. You're probably not going to like it. He said, I'll take it, whatever it is. It was to brief the lowest ranking person entitled to a PDB briefing. That was the National Security Council's Director of Intelligence Programs, okay, which just happened to be this guy named George Tenet. Well, John and George have identical personalities. They're mean, loud, ugly, cigar-smoking, wife-cheating assholes, both of them. And they hit it off immediately. George had just had a heart attack and he wasn't supposed to smoke. So he and John, there used to be a little bodega, a little stand at 17th and Pennsylvania, and the guy sold cigars. So after the briefing, they would walk out there and smoke a cigar together every day. Next thing you know, George becomes the deputy director of the CIA. And he promotes John to be the deputy director of the Office of Near Eastern and South Asian Analysis, that woman's boss.
Oh.
So on his first day back in the office, he called her into his office and he said, now you're fired. And she retired. Well, the next thing you know, he's only in the job for 6 months. Then he becomes the station chief in Riyadh. He's the direct line between the king and George Tenet. 9/11 happens. He comes back and he becomes the executive director of the CIA, the number 3 ranking officer. He's telling everybody who will listen that he wants to be Secretary of Defense. And then he retires. And there was a big wave of retirements right after 9/11. He retires and he goes to work for BAE Systems, very briefly. And everybody else ran to the Hillary Clinton campaign. John was the only one that went to the Obama campaign. And he always says that he's not even a registered Democrat. He voted communist in 1976. Wow. He voted for Gus Hall. He's always been an independent. But everybody was going to either McCain or Clinton, and he didn't like either McCain or Clinton. So he went to Obama, and he was the only one. And then the rest is history.
Okay, so now you are being interviewed. This is a written interview. This is
no. It was taped. Brian Ross came down to Washington, and I met him over at the ABC studios over on DeSale Street, and I decided in the days before that interview that I was going to tell the truth, no matter what he asked me. Because in those days before the interview, President Bush gave a press conference in which he looked right into the camera and he said, "We do not torture." And I said to my wife, she was also a senior CIA officer, I said, he is a bald-faced liar. He is looking the American people in the eye and he's just lying. And then a couple of days later, he's walking to the helicopter on the south lawn of the White House to go to Camp David for the week. And a reporter shouts a question about torture. And he turns and he says, well, if there is torture, it's the result of a rogue CIA officer. And I said to my wife, Brian Ross has sources at the White House, and they're going to try to pin this on me. I said, I'm going to go public. I'm going to tell the truth. And so I did. I said 3 things. I said that the CIA was torturing its prisoners. I said that torture was official U.S. government policy. It was not the result of a rogue. And I said that the policy had been personally approved by the president himself. The president said the next day, he was asked about my comments, and he said, and I'll never forget the quote, he said, I don't know this man. I've never met this man. I don't know why this man would throw me under the bus. It's like, well, that sounds like an admission that there's a torture program.
Yes.
You moron.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Why would he out me like this?
Why would he say the president is responsible for this? What are you talking about? I'm just the president.
Right. Wow.
You know, one of the crazy things that I finally saw in the torture report, or in the heavily redacted executive summary of the torture report, we'll never see the actual torture report, was that George Tenet had repeatedly gone to Dick Cheney to say, we really, really need to brief the president on the torture program. And Cheney kept saying, I'll brief the president on the torture program, and I'll let you know when it's done. So Cheney finally told Tenet that, I told the president about the torture program. And the president's signature is on the authorization. But Bush still maintains that he didn't know there was a torture program. And after all these years, I think I believe him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did Cheney forge it, or was he in a drunken stupor and someone,
I think that Cheney walked into the Oval Office with a bunch of papers and said, Mr. President, we need your signature on these. They're not important. You don't need to read them.
Yeah.
You just sign them and I'll take care of it. I actually think that's what happened. This whole thing was Dick Cheney's idea. All of it.
Oh, and he's still alive.
Can you imagine? This is a guy that's had 85 heart attacks?
Yeah.
And he had heart...
a pig heart in there or something?
Yeah, he has a pig heart or... No, it was the blonde guy from the movie. The guy fell and hit his head, and Dick Cheney got his heart.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Crazy.
It's and then there are people who are good and die young.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
That's right.
And you got Cheney, Kissinger.
Kissinger's another one. You can't kill the devil.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But okay, so we're gonna have to come back for another interview because this is so good and there's so many more questions. Leslie, you want a question?
Yes.
Then we'll get to the
Sure thing, Leslie.
Yeah, so Robbie Martin, who I think you know because you gave him a blurb for his movie, A Very Heavy Agenda, wanted me to ask you what you think about the Anthrax attacks from 2000.
Oh, yeah. It's funny, as a country, we've largely forgotten about those anthrax attacks.
Yeah. So for people who might not remember, about a week after 9/11, there was these anthrax attacks sent through the mail. 5 deaths, 17 injuries. They were sent to the offices of some Democratic senators, Tom Daschle, Patrick Leahy. There was someone accused of it. Turns out to be false. There's someone who they say they think did it, but he's no longer alive, and the case remains unsolved. And it was massive news and was considered. And I fair to mention, most people assumed it was part of the September 11th attack, like an ongoing part of the the attack on the Twin Towers at the time, and it's just kind of been forgotten.
Yeah, for a long time, many of us just assumed that they were connected, that this was this new world that we were living in that was full of terrorism. And I think it's well documented that the FBI utterly blew that investigation. They made accusations against people who turned out to be innocent. One scientist committed suicide. I don't know the answer, to tell you the truth. Was it a disgruntled scientist? Was it? I don't think it was a terrorist. There's no evidence that it was a foreign terrorist. I don't know. I think the conventional wisdom is that it was a disgruntled scientist.
And can you talk about the newly declassified FBI report?
Sure.
So this was you can set it up better.
This was the first of what is supposed to be a series of reports that are going to be declassified from the FBI's investigation post 9/11. It was released on Saturday evening, ostensibly because it was the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. I think it was released on Saturday evening because they thought nobody would pay attention to it. That's just me. But what it was the FBI's investigation, again heavily redacted, but still you can get most of the story, of a couple of Saudis, one by the name of Thumeri, who was an official in the Saudi consulate in Los Angeles, and the other Omar al-Bayoumi, who was a Saudi national living in Los Angeles, and their connections to the 9/11 hijackers, or at least to two of the 9/11 hijackers. The FBI concluded that Thumeri and Bayoumi were lying to them when they said, well, in one case, Bayoumi said that he had just run into the 9/11 hijackers in a restaurant and he heard them speaking Arabic and he said, "Hey, are you Saudi? I'm Saudi." "Oh, yeah, we're Saudi. Nice to meet you." And they shook hands and they became friends, and he had no idea that they were the 9/11 terrorists. No idea. Well, there are other FBI sources documented in this report saying that that is nonsense. That when Bayoumi would go into the Saudi consulate, he was greeted as somebody who was very important. People were deferring to him, and he would speak with Thumeri, that they were friends. Well, the Saudis forced Thumeri to talk to the FBI. He had diplomatic immunity, of course. And the FBI said that one of their sources, who was an employee of the Saudi consulate in Los Angeles, said that Thumeri almost lost his job a number of times because he kept giving out radical terrorist fundamentalist pamphlets inside the consulate. Now, to make all of this worse, the Saudi ambassador to the United States at the time was Prince Bandar bin Sultan Al Saud.
Yeah.
His wife wired $50,000.
He's the guy who called Osama bin Laden a simple, quiet, simple man or something on Larry King.
That's right.
Not true. Just not true.
Not true.
Yeah.
Not true at all. You know, when I was stationed in Saudi Arabia, I knew a lot of bin Ladens, and 99% of them are terrific people, right? They're as Western as you and I are.
I won't hold that against them.
They have houses in Orlando and Beverly Hills and Manhattan and San Francisco, and they would rather be here shopping than, you know, ever step foot in their own country again. But they've got this one bad apple, and his kids are bad too, right? His kids are murderers too. And so the only flight that was allowed in the sky in the 2 weeks after 9/11 was President Bush ordered all bin Laden family members out of the country for their own safety. And so it took about a week, but every bin Laden, and it was like 100 of them, they all finally convened in Orlando. They got onto a Saudi jet and they got the hell out. That was a favor that the Bush family did to the bin Laden family, for the bin Laden family, because they had gone back so many years as business partners and friends. The bin Ladens are the largest, the bin Laden group of companies, it's called, is the largest large-scale construction firm in the Middle East, right? They don't build buildings. They build like airports or new cities in the desert, or the tallest building in the world that's going up now in Jeddah. This is a major, serious construction firm. And the old man, Abdurrahman bin Laden, he had 110 sons. His daughters don't count.
Like the Wilt Chamberlain of...
Exactly. You know, I asked a Saudi one time, "Do you have any children?" And he said, "No, unfortunately, just 5 daughters." I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Anyway,
Yeah.
A Middle East joke, but that was true. That conversation actually took place. So anyway, the
You
FBI
said in Arabic or in English or
in Arabic.
yeah.
Yeah. Ana asif ya Sadiq. I'm so sorry. You only have 5 daughters. So Bandar's wife wired $50,000 to these 2 clowns that the FBI believes made its way to the hijackers. You know, I was the note taker once in a meeting that George Tenet had with Bandar in the days after 9/11, and George blew his stack, and he was screaming at Bandar that we're going to start killing people. And some of those people may be named Al Saud. You get it? And he said, I get it, George. I get it. Well, next thing you know, these Saudi princes who had been kind of trouble for us, or who were on our list of suspicious people, began dying. One of them died in a mysterious one-car accident on the Riyadh to Jeddah highway. One of them went camping and died of thirst, which doesn't happen. One of them walked into the desert and disappeared and was never seen again. And then the bin Laden family started coming forward saying, listen, we want to cooperate. We don't want to have anything to do with him. He's nuts. He's a murderer. So what we said was, we're going to kill him one of these days. So what we want is DNA. So if we blow him up and we have to pick him up in little 2-inch square pieces, we want to be able to test the DNA. And the bin Ladens couldn't get in line fast enough to give the DNA samples.
So I don't understand when Tenet said we're going to start killing
Saudis.
And what that was a warning? What was
that? Was a warning that you're either with us or you're against
Okay.
us. And if you're not going to cooperate with 17 of these guys being Saudi citizens, you're not going to cooperate, then we're going to do it our way.
And so that is what happened to those three, perhaps, in those three suspicious deaths?
That's what we always suspected. The Saudis just killed them.
Okay, got it.
Mm-hmm.
And what does this new document reveal about the connections?
There's no smoking gun in this document yet. That was the one thing that was really disappointing to me. The FBI offers up some conjecture. And
I like that conjecture. That's good. It's a combination of what? Conjecture and something else.
And context.
Yeah.
I
like
up.
That. That's good.
And they do clearly come out and say that they have other sources, that one inside the consulate, who are saying that Fumeri and Bayoumi are lying in their testimony. We never knew until this was released that the FBI believed they were lying. In fact, we didn't know until this was released that they were definitively interviewed. You know, we always wondered if they were. We hoped that they were, but we didn't know. So there's nothing really new. There's no smoking gun, but it does fill in some of the blanks. And then the White House said that there are at least 4 other documents coming that are being redacted now for release. So maybe by the time that happens, we'll have something akin to a full story.
And why do you think Biden's doing this? Actually, I realize we don't have a lot of time. I definitely want your thoughts on that. I have that question, but also, I don't know how much time you've left, but some thoughts on Afghanistan and the pullout there.
Sure. You know, I was always of the opinion that that the mission was the mission. We should have stuck with the mission. And the mission was to destroy Al-Qaeda, which we had done by December of 2001. It wasn't up to us to rebuild Afghanistan. It wasn't up to us to turn them into a Western democracy. It wasn't our problem. We were there to kill or capture Al-Qaeda's leadership and to destroy or disrupt the rest of the organization, which we did. I remember being at CIA headquarters and watching George W. Bush giving a speech, and for the first time, he used the word nation building. And everybody standing around me just groaned like, oh no, we're going to be there for a decade. Well, we were there for 2 decades. I went to Afghanistan with John Kerry in 2011. And when we first arrived, you know, they treat you like this VIP and they take you into the bubble and you're at the conference table and they're giving you this classified briefing. And the briefing is, you know, we have elements of this unit moving here and this unit's moving there. And we killed these terrorists here and the Haqqani network, we bombed them there and we're winning, right? things are going well. We're winning. A year from now, we'll be able to take over this whole swath. So we get out of there, and John Kerry says to me, we may actually win this thing. And I said, Senator, we're not going to win this thing. I said, this is the same briefing they've been giving since 2002. They tell everybody this every single year. One more year, we're going to win this thing. And he said, really? I said, really? I've heard this briefing a half a dozen times. So I just never thought we should have been there in the first place. We had a job to do. We did it by December of 2001, and we should have come home.
And what do you think made Biden, I mean, it seems like releasing this document wasn't a huge deal necessarily, but why do you think he responded to to pressure to do? Was this just throwing some,
Honestly, because the representatives of the 9/11 families told him that he would not be welcome at the commemoration unless he released the documents.
And
that would have been so embarrassing.
Right.
He had to release it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you think this is also, is he concerned about PR given the response to his, I mean, I think it's an unfair attack on him.
I do too.
Or,
Look, this was Donald Trump's plan, and he implemented Donald Trump's plan. He actually delayed the implementation of Donald Trump's plan because Trump wanted us to be out by May 1st. I think we should be out. So I don't care whose plan it was. It makes no difference to me. It got ugly at the end, but you know what? Sometimes things get ugly.
And it was ugly during. That's the thing.
And it was ugly during.
But no one talked about it.
And what would we have remained for anyway? The president of Afghanistan was really no more than the mayor of Kabul. The central government hasn't controlled the countryside, well, pretty much ever. So why remain? There's no good reason to remain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I know you have another interview, so thank you
in
so
10
much
minutes.
Thank you so much. We want to give you a break.
My pleasure.
Yeah,
thank
this
you.
was so great. Definitely come back.
Thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it, and good to see both of you.
Yes. Oh, and anything you want to say for about Assange or Snowden
free Julian Assange. Without WikiLeaks, we wouldn't have any idea what our government was doing. I think he's a publisher. I think he's a journalist. I think he deserves our thanks. And honestly, I don't believe that the U.S. government has any legal cause to hold him. And shame on the British for caving.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, John.
Thanks. Good to see you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. That was great, huh?
Yeah, great interview.
Great interview. Great. I mean, really good storyteller. Very interesting to listen to.
Yeah, very interesting stuff.
Very interesting stuff, yeah. Next time, we're going to have to ask him about the raids. I'm kind of curious about this stuff. Then thank you, Frank Cabot. Katie, this is the best show ever. Mind blown. Wow. That should go. John should use that in his next book. Blurb.
Yeah.
When they say praise for other things, praise for previous interview.
Yeah.
Outside Sounds agrees. Got
praise
two.
for podcast appearances.
Yeah.
Previous reviews of podcast appearances.
Yeah. That'll bump you on the New York Times bestseller list right there. But the people have spoken. That was really interesting. And it's so weird how much the FBI and CIA's pissing contest fucked everyone. Not to put too fine a point on it, but...
Well, I'm a big true crime fan, right?
Oh,
this is something, this interdepartmental agency scuffles and stuff. It's like all the way from the bottom to the top, like other police departments in the same state, the state troopers and the local PD. None of them get along. None of them want to talk to each other. All of them have janky ass equipment that they bought from their cousins, uncles, whoever's. That is not compatible with any of their stuff. Like they're like it's so wild, like how uncoordinated it is. I guess it's it's getting better. I don't know, but it's not better that's just like, oh, they're getting better at like tracking people and stuff like that.
Yeah. Really despicable. The torture stuff is despicable. I heard him on this other interview with Robert Scheer again, like just describing how they would be sleep deprived, which your mind, like you start losing your mind after a certain number of days when you're sleep deprived. And then your organs also start to fail after a certain number of days. I think it was like 12 days or something. And the CIA was allowed to do it for 14 or something totally obscene. I mean, this is all obscene, obviously, anyway, but obscene within even pretending to care about any medical rules.
Yeah, it's completely obscene. It was just straight up a torture program. And the thing about it, like, it just didn't work, and they lied about any information they got from it was a lie. They got all the information from, like, you know, the regular interrogation techniques where you like buy them a cup of coffee and
I've seen that. Like that. I've seen those shows.
Yeah, well, even like, I mean, obviously, cops don't use those techniques in real life. They like our cops will like using torture too for some reason.
Yeah,
it's almost like the point is not. It's almost like the point isn't to stop crime or anything. Right. It's probably, maybe it's just a bunch of sadists.
Well, that's what's scary is that you get sadists, but then you also get people, and I don't, you know, the show is not a source of propaganda, but you get people who I think they sometimes actually think that they're going after the right person, even though it's the wrong person. But I guess it's one of those things. It's like, are they lying? Or are they stupid? Or they're paid not to know, you know, like when they bend the rules, do they actually sometimes think mistakenly that the innocent guy is guilty?
I mean, I can break it down because I'm listening to this really great true crime book. Let me pull up the name of it. Because if people are interested in it, I know there's lots of true crime heads out there, and this one's really good because it's a really academic one. So it's called American Serial Killers: The Epidemic Years. It's a brand new book, and it comes at it from a very academic perspective about like serial killing and like what are the sociological factors that create people who become serial killers. But it goes through like all these stories about like
it's appropriate for a CIA show.
Yeah, but all these cops and stuff and how they react to these crimes. And then they open the story with like the Jeffrey Dahmer case. And I don't know if people know this, but the cops actually walked back one of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims to him, a child who had
like a young,
who was like bleeding and had been tortured. And they walked it back because they assumed that, oh, it was just some gay thing.
Yes.
So it's like,
that was so disgusting. I heard about that from someone and I wanted to throw up.
And did you know that it almost happened twice?
No.
When the cops who actually arrested Jeffrey Dahmer, very similar situation. A guy escaped and he was handcuffed, and the cops were, you know, trying to like brush past it. Even after walking into the apartment and smelling the dead bodies, and the guy was telling, this guy is trying to kill me. He told me he was going to eat my heart. The cops were still like, oh, this is just some gay thing. Now they kept looking. Until they actually saw the pictures of like dead bodies and actual people. They were still of the mind of kind of like, this is just some kind of gay.
But he was caught at this point. They didn't like put this kid back in the clutches of Dahmer.
No, but they were about to until they actually saw corpses. Even the smell didn't stop them. It was the pictures of the actual corpses, and when they actually discovered the corpses there. Up until that point, they smelled the corpses. The guy was saying, this guy is trying to kill me, but they were still like, oh, this is just some thing. We don't want to fill out the paperwork.
Oh my God. That is honestly, it's like one of the worst stories I've ever heard about walking them. I can't even, I knew that. I didn't know it happened
twice. It happened.
But I mean, the second
almost
time
happened
though,
twice. Yeah.
It did,
and so this idea that we always have that the cops are the vanguard against all of this, like, no.
Oh no, I never thought that. I never thought that. But even in those cases, that's disturbing because they actually think, and it's like for fucked up reasons, right? Because they are like they like pathologize gay behavior.
Yeah.
But what's even, it's like scary that they actually, I mean, I guess that's the bias, you know.
Yeah, and this wasn't 100 years ago. This was like the 90s. This was pretty, so this, the thin blue line is not something that protects us, even then. So that's the real problem with propaganda. Like, even though everybody who watches all those cop shows knows that they're fake and not real, you assume that it's like 10% of the cops might be like that, when it's more like it's a whole system and nobody acts like this. Like, the cops aren't this line of defense that are helping us and protecting us from they're the accessories a lot of the times.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to, it's so disturbing. I wanted to, because we're talking about 9/11, I thought it would be a good idea to look at a video that Meet the Press put together. Hold on one second. Well, there are two videos I wanted us to look at. One is an interesting CBS piece, and then one is on Face the Nation. Let's look at this one first.
The FBI has released a...
No, not that one. Sorry. I was going to just play. I'm sorry I didn't, but hold on. Hi, Nick. Everyone say hi to Nick. 1 second, please. Okay, this is a good one.
Welcome back to Face the Nation. Late last night, the FBI released a newly declassified document related to the investigation of the 9/11 terror attacks.
No, not this one either. Sorry.
That hijackers had with Saudi associates here in the U.S. It did not include any evidence that the Saudi government was complicit. Holly Williams is in Riyadh with a look at how that country
it's not moving
is
for me.
against
I just
extremism.
Oh yeah, it's not moving for me either.
At Al-Haya prison, Saudi Arabia claims...
Hold on, what's happening here, guys? It's not working. Let's try that again. Also, where is my... Hold on. Okay. Should I play it? Okay, I'll play it. Hold on. Tell me if this works. Can you guys see this and hear this?
Yes.
Welcome back to Face the Nation. Late last night, the FBI released a newly declassified document related to the investigation of the 9/11 terror attacks, outlining contacts that hijackers had with Saudi associates here in the U.S. It did not include any evidence that the Saudi government
echoing.
was complicit. Holly Williams is in Riyadh with a look at how that country is fighting.
Okay.
Maybe just mute your mic while it's playing.
Will you be able to hear? Let me try this. What about this?
Against extremism.
Now? Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Okay, here.
At Al-Haya prison, Saudi Arabia claims it's reforming convicted terrorists with music, sports.
This is your coffee shop.
Yep, exactly.
And even a coffee shop the prisoners run themselves. Our guide was an inmate, Yasser Essam Hamdi, born a U.S. citizen to Saudi parents in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
I was there for 5
Oh, my hometown.
Very nice. It was a very nice experience.
Bizarrely, many inmates wore business suits during our visit, and others filmed us.
Now, this is not like from the tourism Chamber of Commerce or something from Saudi Arabia. This is for Face the Nation on CBS.
Said for the prison's TV station. Saudi officials accompanied us at all times and denied allegations of torture at the facility. After growing up mainly in Saudi Arabia, Hamdi told us he traveled to Afghanistan to train with the Taliban just before the 9/11 attacks.
I watch action movies a lot, and I wanted to have. I want to try doing stuff like that.
He was captured, held in Guantanamo Bay and then U.S. military prisons before agreeing to give up his American citizenship and returning to Saudi Arabia a free man. He was later arrested by Saudi authorities, though he was vague about why.
I don't want to speak about it a lot, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but talking and stuff like that. And because of that, I came back to prison.
But Hamdi and several other prisoners were happy to describe their upbringing in an ultra-conservative, closed-off kingdom exposed to religious fundamentalism.
If you went looking for extremism, if you went looking for fundamentalism.
Exactly. You can find them. You can find them, you can learn from them, and they will misguide you.
The same factors helped radicalize the 15 September 11th hijackers who were Saudi citizens, according to some. And Saudi Arabia has been criticized for being slow to fix the problem. Now Saudi Arabia says it's reforming. Extremist preaching's been banned. Women have greater freedom than ever before.
By the way, I can't help notice this, like, this weird sword shot.
He has been criticized for being slow to fix the problem. Now Saudi Arabia says it's reforming.
Right while talking about reforming.
Oh, no, yeah.
It's been banned. Women have greater freedom than ever before, including finally the right to drive.
I don't know. I kind of wish we had swords to carry
justified
around.
violence against non-Muslims have been rewritten.
He's not wearing his mask right.
As Saudi
below the
Arabia
nose.
tries to rehabilitate its image and stamped out extremism, Yasser Essam Hamdi told us he's also been successfully reformed.
All people do mistakes. I did a mistake. I was an extremist once, but now I am not.
I like the fade.
The Saudi government has always denied any
I like the
involvement in
boldness.
9/11 attacks.
Yeah.
Like when people make mistakes. People make mistakes.
Criticized over
It's also like, why are they doing this now? It seems like such a hand job.
I guess that's what they're there for. I guess they asked. I guess they put the call.
Yeah.
And like, all right.
Yeah.
You know, kind of. It just seemed like what the problem for me was that it didn't seem to have a lot to offer to the American viewers. Like it wasn't like a big touristy pitch like has been going on.
No,
like
it's more like reform. Reform is here.
It's weird. It's like something you would see like in like a country we had bombed a few years ago.
Right.
Like that would be the follow-up. Like, oh, this is Libya now. Like this is the like when this, you know, KSA press tour started off with like, oh, we have WWE shows, right? Like, oh, I hate KSM. I hang out with The Rock and shit. Like they were hanging out with like Hollywood stars. It was a big like media push, media blitz originally, and then the, you know, dismemberment happened, and now they're coming to us with the like, for lack of a better term, like the third world nation is doing good type puff piece. When before it was like, oh, we're here, we got all this money, we're like, you know, China has all this money now, and hey, we do too now, and like, look at us, come visit us. Yeah, it's weird. It's like a little bit too over the top for I just think it's bad PR, I guess. Yeah, it's not the good PR, especially bad propaganda. When you were so bombastic, when it was so bombastic before, when it was really about the glitz and the glamour. Yeah, you know, it's like oh, these pick a lane. These humble people are, you know, just learning to, you know, enter the modern world now. Finally. Yeah. And then I thought there was another video we could react to that this was from Meet the Press this weekend. Oh yeah. Oh, and people are asking about Nicki Minaj. We could give our take. Oh, we got to do that. Okay. Well, should we do that? I think we have time for both. Can we do a quick Face the Nation? Sure. And then we'll end on Nicki. Sorry. Not Face. Yeah. Hold on. When the towers began. Okay, let me unmute this. Tuck Chad. This is Meet the Press. Okay.
It's been a weekend of remembrance, recalling that day 20 years ago on September 11th when our world suddenly changed. We asked 10 people, some of whom were in government, others who helped us through that terrible time, to tell us of their experience that day and their reflections on the 2 decades that followed.
That day was a day where we thought it was going to be an easy day.
I was actually in a meeting
catty corner from the White House.
My daughter called me and told me to turn on the TV.
What's most vivid to me on that day is hearing the first report and thinking it was an accident.
I actually saw with my own eyes the second plane
that guy
hit
who's at
the towers.
I heard the Capitol Police
Raytheon, that guy. No one mentions that, though.
Evacuate, get out of here right away.
I just told him a second plane hit the second tower. America was under attack.
When the towers began to collapse, the entire country shuddered. And I said on the air at that point,
wow,
this will change us.
It was a shock to really the presumption amongst the American people that we were somehow immune from attack.
We came together in a way that I've never seen in my lifetime.
And what was really powerful,
okay, Joe Torre,
was they were bringing pictures of their lost relatives and friends with Yankee caps or Yankee jerseys, jackets, and saying what big fans they were. I realized that baseball was necessary for, I guess, to start the healing.
In the first days,
he just did to baseball what
he went
CBS
to a mosque
did to Saudi Arabia.
The Muslim faith is not a faith of terror; it's a faith of love.
A lot of people's commitment to our country was brought into question, overlooking the fact that there are scores of Muslims who serve in our law enforcement communities. I was one of them.
One of the greatest spontaneous series of remarks by any president in history were the remarks that the president gave at Ground Zero.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
The authorization to use military force was passed on 9/14, 3 days. 3 days after this horrific, terrible attack. That was the wrong time to pass such an overly broad authorization.
We underestimated the complexity of the war that we were about to get into. And I think a lot of people thought we could just walk in and clean it up.
We got into some.
I wonder why they thought that.
We had to quote.
I know.
Because you told them that was going to happen.
In many ways, an endless war. Probably the right narrative, the right.
I mean, we send people to their deaths.
In Korea, I think
by
that
saying
would have
that.
been the right way to think
I should have my friend Kate
Afghanistan.
Levin on.
We cannot remake.
Yeah, so this guy says Homeland Security to leave out that he's at Raytheon, on the board of Raytheon. Can you imagine?
I mean, Condoleezza Rice just says that's really offensive. We need to think about Afghanistan.
A sad mistake that we went into.
One second, sorry.
That started
let me pause
to end that sense of unity.
Look at that hair color. Oh God, torture. Okay, hold on a
analogy
second.
would have been Korea.
Walk in and clean it up.
We got into some sense that we had to quote end the war, and it is in many ways an endless war. Probably the right narrative, the right analogy would have been Korea. I think that would have been the right way to think about Afghanistan.
We cannot.
Why? So can you expand on your objection?
Well, first of all, that's an insane thing to say. Korea is like actually a country of like a people that was split in half by us, not Afghanistan. Like that's a complete. Those countries are not nowhere near comparable. I don't even. That's just a bizarre thing. But that's just a bizarre comparison to make. Like we still occupy Korea, like we're still occupied.
That's
Korea,
why she's
by
doing
the way.
it. Maybe that's why she's comparing them.
That's not like a good thing, and that's not good for Koreans who are cut off from people who they knew, their families, the other half of Korea, like that. And I hate Condi so much because all the Bush admin officials got away with it. But people praised her just because she was a black woman, and straight up, she was the first black woman who was such and such, but she was evil, and she's just treated with respect. They allowed her to get into the NFL because she loves football. She has never faced any sort of even negativity really and she's personally close to George W. Bush. Not just she didn't just work for him. They are personally close to one another. So she is absolutely complicit in anything that administration does, but nobody has a problem with her.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Hey, and Jed Johnson is the guy who they don't announce is at Raytheon. It may be the other company. What's the other big one? Raytheon and what's the other one?
Lockheed Martin.
Yeah, it's one of those two. Forgive me if I'm wrong about which one. Okay.
Not remake a whole country and prop up another country's government in a distant land.
Bad mistake that we went into Iraq. That started to end that sense of unity.
Our response over time, particularly when we got distracted or, refocused on the Iraq war.
Again, the narrative that the Afghanistan war was the good one.
Became very militarized.
I worry.
Wait, did she say we became very militarized? Hold on.
Our government would be too polarized to
unity.
Our response over time, particularly when we got distracted or, refocused on the Iraq war, became very militarized.
I worry.
So we became militarized in our focus.
That if there were another 9/11 today,
this is a good line.
Our government would be too polarized to summon a national response.
So we couldn't even do nation building and invade another country. That's how, in today's political climate.
Just too polarized to do another invasion.
Thank God it wasn't like that back then. We could get 2 wars under our belts. In addition to all the other ones.
To that event.
I worry that if we don't deal with our internal divisions,
we'll never be able to do another war.
We'll be vulnerable to another kind of degradation of America's security, America's values, and America's future. We've got to come back
what does that
to
even
common
mean?
Purpose.
You're the one who degraded.
I know the torture.
The attacks happened under your watch.
And that's right. But to be fair, how would she know? She only got a daily presidential briefing that said Osama bin Laden to attack inside the United States.
Yeah. Weird.
Jesus Christ. Enough with 9/11. It seems the epitome of neoliberal hypocrisy to mourn that event 20 years later when this event killed millions of people. No one outside the U.S. can even bear to read this. I don't think we do a bad job on this show of ignoring the fallout in other countries of 9/11.
Know your audience. Writing a message. Thank you for the $10.
Yeah,
who are you talking to, though?
Yeah.
I don't think you're talking to us. I think maybe they were talking to the people on MSNBC.
Yes, that's what they were doing. Yes. Okay. Yes. So thank you for knowing your audience.
Yes.
But moving on to more important stories and more important wars and beefs. Leslie, you want to tell us something about
Nicki Minaj? So Nicki Minaj finally is canceled. Finally, thank God. I feel such a relief. I've never been a Nicki Minaj fan, and finally, the Barbs have been defeated online because Nicki.
And Barbs are Nicki fans, right?
Nicki's fans, right? And so for some bizarre reason, Nicki Minaj, who I think has never been an intelligent person, right? Has nothing of value to say as far as I know. For some reason, she was propped up as like some sort of feminist icon around like 2015, but I think it was just like white writers at like Jezebel and shit who were like trying to vampirically like suck the black coolness from her. But I never knew why they propped her up. Cardi B's actually cool, but Nicki Minaj I never thought was actually like cool or had anything really going on besides her music. And I don't even want to get into the dark shit with her husband being like a fucking rapist or whatever.
Oh, I don't know.
We don't even have to get into that. But she decided to take to social media to complain to warn people about the fact that she heard from her cousin.
She played the role of Paul Revere. Yeah.
Yeah. She heard from her cousin that he got vaccinated and his balls went that big or stretched out something. I actually forgot because I have in my head this Trinidadian newscaster who gave this commentary on it. It's very funny. And he said, you go around telling people your cousin got a flat tire.
Do we have that? Can we watch that?
Oh yeah, let me pull that up.
All right.
Let's pull that up.
Well,
Actually,
and
yeah, that's the best thing. Actually, let me.
Yeah,
pull that
we got the clip from Joy. So you saw, and this turned into a big thing because Joy-Ann Reid responded to it.
Joy-Ann Reid responded to it and just with the typical, like, how dare you say this about, the vaccine. They did the liberal, thing, which I'm not complaining about, especially in this instance, but you do see, like, it's a pattern at this point. Some dipshit celebrity says something about COVID that's not real, and then we make a big show of, like, how stupid they are and how stupid but it doesn't really seem to, like, change like anything as far as, like, or, like, get through to any other side. But this one was actually, like, at least it was funny. At least it was funny with the news. But let me
Okay, I can, in the meantime, I can also
it's so funny every time you, like, that video was all over the internet all day. The second you want to find it, it's like,
I know, it's always like that.
about? It's always like
well,
that.
here's the okay. So she said this was because she wouldn't get vaccinated for the Met Gala. Here it is. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
They want you to get vaccinated for the Met. If I get vaccinated, it won't be for the Met. It'll be once I feel I've done enough research. I'm working on that now. In the meantime, my loves, be safe. Wear the mask with 2 strings that grip your head and face, not the loose one. And then in response to a fan who said that blogs may drag the story, Nikki shared that she's not worried. Who cares what blog's going to do? Y'all always worried about blogs. This is my real FKN life. They can choke. And here was where she, like, started making a public health announcement. My cousin in Trinidad won't get the vaccine because his friend got it and became impotent. His testicles became swollen. His friend was weeks away from getting married. Now the girl called off the wedding. So just pray on it and make sure you're comfortable with your decision, not bullied.
Yeah, I'm sure that happened, Nikki.
Yeah.
I'm sure that 100% happened.
Yeah. So someone wrote, some random guy in Trinidad blamed COVID for catching an STI while cheating, and now look what he caused.
Yes, everybody saw immediately that was absolutely a fucking made up story. I just sent you the video of the response. Oh, you can play Joy.
Should we play this one first? Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen Joy's.
I'm sure
this one is probably gonna be annoying.
Yeah, like, she does seem broken up.
Nikki always sucked. Like, I don't know what's new. Nikki always sucked. She never had any. I'm sorry, I never liked this.
Well, did you see her response though?
Oh.
This is what happens when you're so thirsty to down another black woman by the request of the white man that you didn't bother to read all my tweets. My God, sister, do better. Imagine getting your dumbass on TV a minute after a tweet to spread a false narrative about a black woman.
I mean, I don't see how it's false, Nikki. I'm sorry. Joy-Ann was right. I don't know what you're.
I know it's weird
saying.
To say that, right?
Yeah, Joy-Ann.
Isn't it a weird
right.
feeling?
Sorry.
Tomiana purpose, and then she calls her Tomiana. Uncle Tomiana, she called her another tweet. Purposely chose to ignore these tweets and others. I wonder why. And then Uncle Tomiana asked who on earth would trust us, the FDA guys.
It is very funny, and Nicki Minaj is getting in a fight with Joy-Ann Reid on Twitter.
I know.
Hassan got into it too. Hassan Piker. Piker.
What he say?
Not Hassan. Hassan Piker got into it, and Nicki Minaj quote tweeted him. It wasn't anything testy, but it was there when she revealed that the president reached out to Nicki to talk about her, like to talk to her about this. Did you know this part?
No.
That the president is
Biden, our president, or
yes, our president has reached out.
Not
to
my
Nicki
president.
Minaj.
Yeah, I did not know that. Oh,
yeah, Jen Psaki. I sent it's the second link I sent you.
Oh, okay, hold on 1 second.
The
But
third
one
link
thing she did say is that Minaj said she called Joyce a lying homophobic
coon. I can say it.
Okay, you want to say it? So say the 3 words together.
She called Reid a lying homophobic coon, which shows that Nikki, she looks up her opponent.
Sorry. Oh my God, that was the worst moment. I meant to. Sorry, say that again. She looks up. I closed
her
on
opponent.
you instead of the screen.
Yeah, she looks on her opponent, so she knew to look up Joy-Ann Reid stuff and wasn't just like
right
out. She wasn't just popping off.
Yeah, and she. I mean, look again. I'm. It's very weird. I don't agree with Minaj. I'll say on this, but she is right about the lying homophobic part.
Yeah, she is.
I mean, that
right
is
about
true.
that.
So she, as you said, she did her research. Okay, so Nick, can we play the video that's in that Leslie sent?
I sent this. There's I sent 3 links. We can look at the second one, which is the
I can also
Jen Psaki.
Okay, 1 second. Oh my gosh, this is going to be good.
Call. Seems to be a difference of opinion between Nicki Minaj and the White House about.
There's a difference between Nicki Minaj and the White House.
Send an invitation to Nicki Minaj to come here. We offered a call with Nicki Minaj and one of our doctors to answer questions she had about the safety and effectiveness of the vaccine. This is pretty standard and something we do all the time. It was a very early stage call at a staff level, staff to staff, and we weren't even at the point of discussing, or we're not even at the point of discussing, I should say at this point, the mechanisms or the format or anything along those lines. It was simply an offer to have a conversation and an early stage call.
Do you think that's going to happen?
We'll see. I don't have anything to predict for you.
Nicki Minaj has 22 million Twitter followers. Why not invite her to the White House, have a conversation, and make it a big public
Is this a Barb, an undercover Barb?
I appreciate your recommendations on our communications advice. Karen, you are quite experienced. Look, I will say...
You made note to call her a
we
Karen
recognize,
just there.
and we've done this a bunch before, that we are not always the right platform or the right voice, right? Sometimes that's because people may not like the president.
Whoa, humble Jen. Okay.
Yeah. And then we can watch the other one, which is a really great summary of it.
Is that the first or the third?
Third one.
This one dropped yesterday morning. And as the story dropped, it was excitement. Now, Nicki Minaj, no stranger to controversy. I mean, she was here for Carnival in 2020, and that was a bacchanal with her husband, now husband, and Iowa. She would have made some outlandish statements over the years, but this one takes the cake. This is almost like what you would hear by a parlor, where somebody will tell you, well, their cousin, friend, neighbor, say XYZ. I mean, come on, Nicki, you have 180 million followers. People listen to you, people follow your particular lead. You going on the social media space and talking about your cousin friend take the vaccine and get impotent. And all of a sudden, you know, marriage call off and some kind of bacchanal story. I mean, it's irresponsible on all
means
fronts.
kind of drama.
Irresponsible based on the misinformation that is going out there regarding this vaccine. You know, there was no verification of the story. And furthermore, even on a personal note, even if this is the case, to expose your cousin friend's flat tire in the public domain like that. If the man have a flat tire, okay, he will work on that. You know, there's herbs and punch and certain things the man can eat and bring back our vibes. But don't come now and talk that kind of talk. The thing gets so hot. Jake Tapper on CNN yesterday at 4 o'clock talk about this with Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci is, of course, the U.S. That's their leading mind and specialist with this whole COVID-19 pushback and the fight against the COVID-19.
I love the light
Fauci
towards America.
You know, like the man was blindsided. You had to answer.
He said he didn't want
nothing personal against Nicki.
Little American.
I mean, I do think we should per se, but Nicki, better than that. I honestly expected better. And besides, obviously, that outlandish statement, and she always talks about Trinidad, and she's from Trinidad, she's yet to collaborate with somebody from here.
What?
But that's a talk for another program on another day.
Whoa. Can we get this guy on the show?
We should have him. Very, very good.
That was great. Wow. Flat tire.
Flat tire.
It happens? He makes it sound like he knows that condition. Is that a thing?
I mean, I think he just means like is impotent.
Oh, that's what it is. I thought he was saying. Oh, okay.
I don't think it was specifically about.
Oh, I thought it was about the balls. Okay, that's why I was like flat tire. I thought
in the public domain like that.
Got it. We should break this down again. Okay. Please playing there. Every man has a flat tire.
In the public domain like that. If the man have a flat tire, okay, he will work on that. You know, there's herbs and punch and certain things the man can eat and bring back a vibes.
Yeah, bring
But
back
don't
the
come
vibes.
now
I
and
see. I
talk
thought
that
he
kind
was
of talk. The thing
describing.
that's
Okay,
so
got
hot.
it. So he's saying that you can find medical cures for
Yes.
impotence.
You
Got
have
it.
to put his cousin's
Right,
business
right,
out there
right.
in the streets.
Yeah, seriously. Flat tire. I see. Yeah. Okay. I like that though. Punch. I like the punch. Is there a punch? That sounds.
There's a punch.
Yeah. Anyway, well, this was a great show.
Yeah.
Let me see any Patreons that we got. I mean, we got a lot of generous donations. Oh, come on. We got to get one Patreon, guys. No, if you like this show, guys, did you like the show? I know a lot of you did, because a lot of you guys said how great the show was. So you know what to do. You just go to patreon.com/the Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com. I can't do it. Patreon.com/the Katie Halper Show. I always, when I try to do Caribbean, it like turns into Scottish. I don't know why. And just drop some Patreon love. Patreon.com/the Katie Halper Show. Let's see. How do I do this? It's so demoralizing. Leslie, what do? You just ask, you just say how great it is to join, and then people do it?
Yeah. You just
pressure to do it.
and just talk about the recent episodes. That's it.
Oh, recent episodes. You know what you'll get on Patreon? Oh, really great stuff, actually. You'll get me unfiltered on well, let's see. Let me think of a good Patreon. Oh, well, coming soon is a really great Patreon on the Texas abortion ban. This is an audio Patreon. Let me think of what's video Patreon. Oh, you know what you're gonna get soon? A little Rose McGowan. I could actually tease some of that without you, because I know you have to go. But yeah, you guys want to hear from Rose McGowan? Rose McGowan, guys, become Patreon supporters. Unreleased. And here's what you're gonna get if you're a Patreon. First of all, you should be like, oh my God, this show was so good tonight that I should become a Patreon right away. But then, you know what else you can come for? Come to the Patreon for forthcoming interviews with, never before released interviews with Rose McGowan and Gabor Mate. Rose McGowan, Gabor Mate. We'll be doing more self-care stuff also. You know, I don't agree. I said this before about the Rose McGowan thing. I don't like Larry Elder, and I wouldn't endorse him, even though I also have disdain for Gavin Newsom. But I'm not going to judge someone who had personal experience with Gavin Newsom's wife. It reminds me of the Juanita Broaddrick thing. I get this a lot when I mention her, but I don't know. Like, if you had something happen to you, I understand why you're going to support that person's opponent. And so Rose McGowan says that Gavin Newsom's wife tried to discredit her and smear her. And I think that makes it understandable. Just like I think it's understandable that Juanita Broaddrick, who says Bill Clinton raped her, endorsed Donald Trump, even though I don't like Donald Trump. But we can't keep expecting people to not live by through their own experiences. So you don't have to like Larry Elder, but I don't know. So anyway, but I had this really amazing interview with her where she goes through why she does not consider herself a Democrat, and she talks about the Clintons, and she talks about Kamala Harris, and it all starts with how upset she was over Kamala Harris speaking with Bill Clinton at an event on empowering women and girls. Yeah. Anyway, what else? Anything else, Leslie?
Oh no. But everyone, make sure to check us out. Check out Struggle Session. If you enjoy the show at patreon.com/struggle session. We gonna have an upcoming episode on Candyman, the old and the new version. I think I talked a little bit on the show about how great the old version was, and how it's about like gentrification and all this stuff. Very, very good movie. We have an upcoming episode on some pro wrestling. And in fact, if anybody's, if you're staying up tonight, head over to twitch.tv/struggle session tonight, because I will be doing a wrestling show. It won't not on my channel. It's just that if I tell this guy's name, nobody's gonna remember it. But at least if you go to struggle session, you'll find where we're hosting it, because we're doing a little pro wrestling show after the fact. His name is Nude Tane Salary Main, but you might not find it on Twitch. But just follow me on Twitter. Twitter.com/Leslie Lee. I'll tweet it out in a second if you want to watch some wrestling in about an hour.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to stay on for 5 more minutes, but you get ready for your show, Les.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks. You too. Bye. Just want to make sure that people understand. My point is not that Larry Elder is the same as Gavin Newsom. My point is that if you have something happen in your personal life with someone, that may determine your politics. And I can't judge people who do that. You know what I'm saying? Does that make any sense? I don't know why I respond to one person in the chat who seems to think that I'm equating Elder and Newsom. I mean, Newsom is a shit lib and a disappointment, and he has blood on his hands. But, Elder is worse. That's what I say. But I also get what she's doing. If I had an interaction with Newsom's wife, I'd probably be trying to get my story out there. And sometimes the media doesn't pay attention to your story unless you do something like that. So the point is, you become Patreon supporters, you'll get access to that interview. And it's a longer interview. Other people are going to get very small little gems. All right. I will see you guys all soon. Thank you so much for coming to the Katie Halper Show. This was a great interview. I'm going to do another one with John, which will be Patreon only as well. And I will see you either next week, maybe Sunday. Not sure if I'm going to be doing a show then. But make sure you subscribe, because I do sometimes I just do these, shooting from the hip, not planned, just reacting to the news shows. Also, please put in this comment under this video. Put in the chat some shows or movies on Amazon that you would want me and Leslie or me and other guests to basically do a Mystery Science Theater with. You know what I mean? And we'll donate some of the that'll have to be on Twitch, and we'll donate. That'll be a Patreon only thing, but we'll donate some money to anti-Amazon organizing, because that you have to do through Amazon, unfortunately. Okay, so any Amazon Prime shows, let me type this up actually. Please suggest series or movies on Amazon Prime, I think that's to be, you want us to have watch parties. Mystery Science Theater. Okay. All right. See you guys soon. Bye, everyone. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Verushka. Thanks, Tyler.